Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And we're going to talk about Stolen Glory, and we're going to talk about Dungeon Masters. So I had an interesting conversation with someone in my comments recently, and I'm very blessed to have conversations with people in my comments all the time. Nice back and forth. I wish I could spend more time in there than I do. I try to respond to comments as much as I can, but I think like every creator, it's really challenging because we're one creator and there's literally 2,100 followers and or subscribers, and just the math. So anyway, so this so basically this commenter come in and he was responding to one of my videos and said, I don't run D&D, but I call myself a dungeon master. What? What now? All right, first of all, this would have been a problem. This would have been a problem in December 2022. But the problem then would have been much less than it is right now, okay? And what I'm saying is that this is stolen glory. Stolen glory. If you're not a dungeon master, don't call yourself a dungeon master. And now more than ever, it's really important that we all are super clear what a dungeon master is and what a game master is. Okay? So let's get into it. All right. So this is stolen glory. Now, what is stolen glory? In order to understand stolen glory, you need to understand stolen valor, right? So I had an incredibly fortunate, I was a really nice month in December, and I got invited to the Army-Navy football game in Philadelphia. And I think it hadn't been there in 7 or 8 years. And I had no idea the scale of this thing. I had an idea of the scale of it, but I was shocked when I went. It was incredible. Like, when we were walking in, no one was selling scalp tickets. They were all buying, because there were no one would sell the tickets they had. They were like, as we were going in, there were multiple people who were saying, hey, buying tickets. Every seat was filled, right? And I couldn't believe what an honor it was just to attend the Army-Navy football game, right? And when we were walking in, the person who invited me was a veteran, right? And I was talking to his son, and his son had this great jacket on that had the school, the Army school that the son so father and son, right? And I'm talking to the son. The father is there too, right? And the son is wearing this amazing coat from his father's Army school from when he went 30, 40 years ago, right? And I was like, that's an incredible jacket, man. I would wear that every day. And he's like, well, I can't wear it every day. I can wear it to this Army-Navy game because everybody's going to wear Army colors, But if I wear this any other day, I run into stolen valor, right? And I knew what this meant. I was like, oh, yeah, that would be a problem. He's like, I'm a young man. I am not a veteran, right? And I'm not in the Army. And if I wear this, people will go, thank you for your service, right? And if they thank the son for the service and he didn't serve, he's stealing valor. He is not meaning, he's just wearing his dad's jacket, right? But he understands that people will assume and they'll think that he fought for this country, that he served this country in the U.S. military. And that's stolen valor. He didn't earn it, right? And so he doesn't wear the jacket on any other day except when he's going to an Army-Navy game with his dad. Then he has the right to wear it. And it's not a problem because everybody's wearing Army-Navy colors, and it's not a problem, right? And nobody's saying thank you for the service because there's so many people there wearing Army-Navy that nobody's making the assumption, right? Well, get this. This guy in my comments, he is stolen glory. He is saying he is a dungeon master, but by his own words, he does not run Dungeons and Dragons. Well, guess what? That's stolen glory. You're stealing my glory, okay? I was a dungeon master in 1982 in the middle of the Satanic Panic, right? And like many other dungeon masters, I had to endure. I had to strive through the Satanic Panic, okay? And then I have run Dungeons and Dragons every year of my life since. I am a dungeon master. I'm not a game master, okay? This guy is a game master, and he is running Old School Essentials, which is not Dungeons & Dragons, does not have Dungeons & Dragons on its cover, and is not Dungeons & Dragons. And that game is a retro clone, right? They didn't do the work to write even half the material in there. They copied it, right? This is a GarageBand copy, junk pile of pages. It is not a real game. It is not really anything that anybody should... Actually, I'm sorry. It is a game. It's a game, right? Dungeons & Dragons, I don't think is a game. I think it's far more than a game, right? Dungeons & Dragons, and even if you disagree with me, one thing you cannot argue with is Dungeons & Dragons at minimum is a cultural icon and is an element of Americana. Those are non-debatable, right? It's name checked on 100 shows, right? And it is known as something cool that America invented, right? So the reality is Dungeons & Dragons is far more than a game. Even people who don't believe what I believe about Dungeons & Dragons understand that, okay? Now, here's the issue. OSC has not done the work, right? Old School Essentials is not Dungeons & Dragons, and they are game masters, right? And frankly, I think even in the book it says game master, right? Because they know Dungeon Master is a real title with real glory, and I have glory based on my dungeon mastering. I can roll into a convention and say, and they don't even need to be a dungeon. It doesn't even need to be a tabletop role-playing convention. I could go to any fandom convention and say I'm a dungeon master, and immediately people understand. Okay, this person understands narrative. They have the ability to bring a table together, right? And it's not just they are also part of the history of Dungeons & Dragons, and they've helped build the history of Dungeons & Dragons, and they've protected the history of Dungeons & Dragons, and they have shown people Dungeons & Dragons, and they've spread Dungeons & Dragons. Not retro clones of Dungeons & Dragons, not copies of Dungeons & Dragons, not similarities to Dungeons & Dragons, but actual Dungeons & Dragons. And in 2022, it was cute for you to do Stolen Glory, but right now, actually, it wasn't even cute then, right? Because the reality is, Stolen Valor is for people who have been under incredible, difficulties, right? And guess what? Dungeon Masters have been under incredible difficulties. We already lived through one panic that said D&D be gone. We had thousands of Christians all over America yelling D&D be gone. Guess what? Dungeon Masters have that today. They say, oh, are you part of that disgusting group of people who run Dungeons and Dragons, right? And in the 1983s, it was like, hey, I have a moral standard and TSR doesn't meet it. And now in 2023, oh, I have a moral standard against Hasbro. That means you can't buy, own, read, run, watch Dungeons & Dragons. Nothing has changed with the year. Zealots in 1983, Zealots in 2023, right? And the Dungeon Master, again, with another group of people saying, you cannot exist. Go look at AJ Pickett's last tweet, right? He has #BeGone, and he's saying, it's out. We want this finished, right? And he's like, hey, it's on. It's on like Donkey Kong. Let's do this, man. And there are people who want D&D gone. And they also know that, D&D change, D&D preserves doesn't help, right? Because no one's going to play their copy energy junk when the real thing still exists. And that's why D&D gone is such a powerful banner for the persecutor now. They have to get rid of it, right? And so the reality is, this is what I'm telling you. If you're running Old School Essentials, right? If you're running 5 Torches Deep, right? If you're running some copy of Dungeons & Dragons, do not call yourself a Dungeon Master. You haven't earned it, right? And there is glory under having the bravery to say in 1983, I am a Dungeon Master. And there is bravery in 2023 when you cannot even whisper Dungeons & Dragons in an FLGS, right? Without the castigation of the OGL groups, the OSR groups, the ORC groups, right? We are under castigation, contempt, and judgment every moment of our existence now. The only difference is we're not surprised because it's already happened. It happened in 1983. It's happening in 2023. So basically, where we really have arrived, okay, is that we are at the point where, we're at the point again where Dungeon Master is a badge of honor, okay, and we have strived through persecution to keep it and protect it and do it and be it, and the reality is, if you're not running Dungeons & Dragons, you are not a Dungeon Master, and you better step back because it's stolen glory, right? And it is even more repugnant today because there's real costs for real Dungeon Masters. You guys go over there and you take your scrub title of Game Master, It doesn't mean anything. It isn't anything because you've done nothing for it and you've built nothing into it. There's no respect around it because it's not heavy. It's worthless. And take your scrub Game Master title. Do not dare put Dungeon Master on yourself if you're not running Dungeons & Dragons. If you run Dungeons & Dragons, and I don't care what edition, right? D&D 1E, D&D 2E, D&D 3E, D&D 4E, D&D 5E, anything produced by TSR, WotC, or Hasbro, you're a real Dungeon Master. But if you get some retro clone crap, right? No Pathfinder, and nice people have done this. Dale Kingsmill had told a story where she's like, she invited a group of people to play Dungeons & Dragons, and they showed up, and they're like, what is this? And she's like, Pathfinder, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's a retro claim junk copy, right? It's not the same thing. Don't pull out a pair of Norkies and tell people they're Nikes. It's not the same thing. What you're doing is wrong and repugnant. It is disrespectful. It is stolen glory. Every word of that is my humble opinion. I'm willing to hear yours. Please get into the comments, send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.